Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years retirement community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenman and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenman, and today we are thrilled to welcome a great singer-songwriter, artist, member of the North American Country Hall of Fame, the Rockabilly Hall of Fame, a three-time Star Search winner, author of the memoir, I'm Not Going Anywhere, and has her current album, Dragonfly, out now. Please help us welcome Kelly Lang. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. What an introduction. Might I interject that I'm super proud that I was just recently inducted into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame too. So I'm
Hey,
good grief.
You got to own these things, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, to start with, what was that whole process like, and your feelings when you hear your name being announced as the winner?
It's so surreal. You know, when I look back on it and look at that little 18-year-old kid that was doing that, I cannot believe I had the nerve to do that, because it was bigger than life. You know, I think you're just stupid when you're that young, you know. But when I think about the comparison to today's kids, I cannot imagine the pressure that they're under with social media and all of the people that are so hateful, you know, online. I didn't have that. Of course, they're probably talking, you know, in their living rooms behind our backs, but we never knew. And so it gave you a bit more ability to have courage to jump out there and try to do your best. But what a gift, you know. And I'm still friendly with a lot of the contestants that I was on there with. And it's kind of like a sorority or fraternity kind of thing when you have that type of a show in your history together, because nobody really can relate to that other than those that have been there with you.
Do you have to audition for the show? Is that how it worked?
Well, I was really wildly fortunate in the fact that I had been singing a lot around Nashville, and a lot of the booking agents in town used me for opening acts for different artists. And I was called by Star Search because they had checked around to see who would be a good up-and-comer, you know, for this kind of thing. And several of them mentioned my name. So they asked me to try out. But the first time I tried out, I was only 17, and I wasn't able to make it because I wasn't of age yet. So they came back around the next year, which I was really surprised, you know, that they would have me in their pocket all that time. And so they came back around, and I tied the first show. I actually went up against Tariva Henderson. She had been on there for six shows in a row as a winner. And I tied with her, so they brought me back the next week. I had to compete with her and another girl because the audience and the judges tied us. You know, so it was kind of a first of many weird things that happened during Star Search. But I'm still friends with Tariva, so that's kind of neat. Full circle moment. Many years later, I was performing regularly on the Crook and Chase show, Music City Tonight, and Tariva later joined that show too. So it's like we're always, you know, surrounding and circling each other in some form or fashion.
That's great.
Well, what was Ed McMahon like, and were you aware of who he was when you were doing the show?
Oh, I was well aware of who he was. You know, I was a big Johnny Carson fan, and you know, he was such a huge part of the Tonight Show, and I Publishers Clearinghouse. I mean, everybody knew Ed McMahon. But I will say, you know, as a contestant on the show, we weren't able to, you know, hang out with him or anything. It wasn't like we had a real camaraderie with him at all. I did get to know his wife at the time. Her name was Victoria. She was really, really sweet. I hung out with her quite a bit. But, you know, I was a kid, and Ed was, you know, doing his thing, and I didn't get a chance to really get to know him, but what a thrill to have met him.
Well, when you had grown up in a country household, your dad, Velton Lang, was the road manager for Conway Twitty. When you grew up in the country with country stars like that, so close to them, is it something that you realize how special it is, or did you just think this is Dad's job, no big deal?
thought it was Dad's job, no big deal. It really did. I mean, it was nothing unusual that Conway would just come over for coffee and hang, and we'd go to dinner with. I mean, it really, to me, that's what everybody's dad did. I didn't think anything about it. In hindsight, we're all 2020 at that point, but I look back and go, oh my gosh, that was a very big deal. It was really commonplace for people like Loretta or George Jones or Randy Trapp. I mean, these people would call my dad daily for advice, and I'd be on the phone. I just thought that was normal. Boy, what a great life, though. What a special life, because I was really privy to a lot of things that other people will never be able to witness. And, it's also given me insight as to what type of artist I wanted to be. And, how kind these people really are in real life. Some of them weren't so much, and those are not who I wanted to grow into. But I've noticed that the bigger the star, the nicer they are. Really, they don't have anything to prove, and they're very kind. And I learned a lot of how to treat people, and by watching Conway with his fans. I mean, he was just so kind and so generous, and just he lived for his fans, and I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned he comes over for coffee. Any other memories of Conway?
Well, I have thousands, but one of my very favorite ones, I think people appreciate, when he would record a new album, he would have all of his organization and the kids and, in-laws and outlaws and wives and all this stuff over to his house. And this was in Moore, Oklahoma, the memory that I'm sharing with you. So I remember his house was a ranch house, and it was a beautiful, sprawling ranch house. He had a beautiful pool we'd go swim at all the time. And he would have us over and let us hear the songs that he was getting ready to record, and give us his, thoughts on what he was going to say in the song and how it was going to play out, and ask our opinions on it. I was 6. What did I know? Right. So I remember very distinctively, I would sit in his music room at his feet. I remember he had a black leather couch. It was a red and black music room, had a stage in it. And I remember his patent leather black half boots. He zipped them up. And I don't know why I remember that so distinctively, but he said, I'm getting ready to record this song I wrote. And on this part, that this is going to be where the bass goes boom, boom, boom. So don't worry about that. I'm just going to sing that part. Well, as we well know now, later on, that was You've Never Been This Far Before. And he sang the part boom, boom, boom. And he didn't let the bass part, kick in with that. And it turned out to be one of his biggest little cliches in his song, and it got him banned from the radio, which I thought that was kind of funny in time. But who gets to do that? I mean, there's just so many little stories like that I could talk all day about him.
When did you and your family first start realizing that you were a great singer in your own right?
That's still to be determined. Well, I like to tease. I grew up watching him. I wanted to be what he had. I loved when he walked out on the stage that he didn't have to say anything. The people just really gave him a lot of love, and the excitement from watching him on stage gave me the inspiration to want to do that. Now, I had to grow into that. I had to grow into learning to sing, learning to write, learning to, perform or whatever. And I like to tease that my talent had to keep up with my enthusiasm, because it had to catch up with me, because it's definitely a skill you have to learn and grow into. And I just was very tenacious. I had no desire to ever give up. And I it finally caught up with me that I'm able to do things that I love doing with this talent. So that's very kind of you.
So you're still a teen when you record the song Lady Lady, and then you have the Country Music Television Network reach out to you to be able to use your song. I mean, what on earth is that like for you at the time to be, suddenly thrust into the spotlight like that?
It was the craziest thing. Oh my God. So okay, so we're here in Nashville at Twitty City. Conway had just opened up Twitty City and Music Village, and I was asked to be a regular opening act, as I had been on a lot of the shows here at Music Village. Well, one of the things that Music Village was also starting in that same area was CMT. And it was started by Benny Jaggers and Stan Hitchcock. And they knew me because I was doing shows for them. They were just like, yeah, you've got this little song on the radio and we need content. So let us pay for your video. Now that never happens ever since then. And I've never seen anybody else have that, position given to them. But yeah, it's timing, right place, right time. And I just seem to always be able to fall into really special blessings like that. I would give anything to see that video again. I don't even know where it is. It's just such old footage. It was from 84, 85, something like that. So I don't know where it is. If somebody out there, let me see. Yeah. You'd think in this age we could find it somewhere. I'm sure it's somewhere, but it was quite a thrill. And, TG does not want to hear this, but I did have a crush on the cowboy that was in the video, and it was my first kiss. So that was kind of an interesting.
Well, as we said, you grew up in the business in a way, but at what point did your life begin to change based on your own work? I mean, like the songs, TV appearance, when did you start feeling like you were now in a different stratosphere than what you had been used to?
Well, I really got to see some different things when I moved to Tennessee from Oklahoma. I was, a very young girl, but I got to see how being hands-on and being in the city that really is called Music City really come to play. By the time I was maybe 8, 10 years old, I was doing school plays, that kind of thing. Started on the Ralph Ermey morning show when I was 12. So I would go do that show really early in the morning and then go back to school, which it was very strange, but I did that show on and off for many years. It was kind of like a college for me. I learned a lot of what I knew from Ralph and from watching other artists on that show, kind of getting your feet wet with something that big of a deal in Nashville. And naively, I just thought the only people I was really singing to was just the people there in that studio audience. It didn't dawn on me that there was thousands and thousands of people watching me grow up. And I really learned a lot there. And then from that point, I was doing more opening acts and Star Search then eventually came around. So, you just grow into it. You just realize that this is your life and this is what's going to be. And boy, am I grateful. I was teasing with TG the other day. I realized that I have been in the music business in some capacity for 50 years this year. Because wow. My first song when I was 6 years old, so I knew 50 years ago that this is what I was going to do. And I'm just so grateful that I've been able to play that out.
Well, as you kind of started to hint at, you were still in high school when a lot of these things happened for you. Did you notice a change in the way you were treated?
Yeah, from my from my classmates or from
oh yeah, very much so. I did. My growing up, probably one of the most recognizable periods of time for me as an actor was during my high school years, and I was very much, no one knew how to deal with me. It was a very, very, very interesting experience. So I just wonder if you had anything similar like that, similar to that happen to you.
I'm so naive. Maybe. I don't know. I didn't have anything to compare it to, so I really thought that was normal. I was never a partier. I was never one to be invited to parties because I knew that there was wild stuff going on, and that never impressed me. It never, my brain, like you probably, I was on acting. My brain was on singing. So, I don't know. I loved my classmates. I enjoyed time there, but my brain wasn't there, if that makes any sense. So whatever they said didn't really affect me. I had a very focused mind, and I still do. I just let a lot of things just kind of fly off of me because I have bigger plans.
Well, you're also a songwriter, and your songs have been performed by such acts as B.J. Thomas, George Jones, Jerry Lee Lewis. One of my favorites, the Oak Ridge Boys. It's great singing your own songs, but is there like a different level of satisfaction when you hear other performers doing your songs?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you have this idea in your head what it's going to sound like, right? And then you sing the demo, and then some of these people, my musical heroes, you know, they come in and they add their own flair to it, and it's mind blowing because they'll change a tune or change a word, and obviously you're not going to tell Jerry Lee Lewis how to sing your song, you know. So but then you end up growing used to that version, and you can't imagine it any other way. For instance, Crystal Gale came in and sang one of my songs called I'm Not Going Anywhere as a duet with TG. And when I say TG, I'm talking about my husband, TG Shepherd, in case your listeners might not know. But she added some ad-libbing to the end of the song, and I was so moved by it. It just took the song up a notch to the point where I can't even sing it anymore without adding what she had added. So yeah, it's really humbling, I guess is the best word to say. I can't tell you the thrill of it. Now, there's been some people that have cut my songs that I'm like, huh, wow, I didn't hear it that way, but that's an interesting point, you know. but you know, the fact is that they thought enough of the song to cut it is still thrilling, you know.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's so fascinating. Because that was going to be my next question. You know, how did they change your work? But did anyone do it exactly the way you had presented it, and not put their spin on it, simply being they're performing it, but they followed your, you know, all of your style?
Most of them do. Most of them, you know, they learn it as it is, and it's mostly a pleasure. I'd say 99.9% a pleasure. And then that 1%, you're like,
yeah,
they'll never know.
Yeah, no, of course not. And nor should they.
So you're an artist as well, and some of your art has been displayed. Your work has been displayed in the homes of such people as like Oprah and Barry Gibb. So how did that come about? How did you first start realizing that you had a talent for that as well?
I still don't. It's the weirdest thing. So my brother is an artist. He's a college trained artist, and my mom was an artist. So, you know, the arts, I think, are all connected. Like if you can dance, you can sing. If you can sing, you can act. If you can act, you can paint. You know, that kind of thing. It's like, what is it? The right side of the brain, I guess, is the more creative, I guess. So one day in my 30s, TG brought home an oil painting kit. And I'm like, what is this? He said, I just think you'd be good at it. And I said, I've never drawn a stick figure. Like, what are you thinking? He said, just think about it. Just try it. And I'm like, oh, he's always encouraging me to challenge myself more, which I love about him. So I decided I would paint him something as a thank you to kind of shut him up, really. You know, I didn't think much about it. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but he wrote the Folgers theme song, The Best Part of Waking Up. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I painted him a little coffee cup. And I went to get it framed, and the lady at the frame shop wanted to buy it from me. And I'm like, oh, well, there's money in this, you know. So she wanted me to paint her one, and it kind of started from there. And I started, you know, I didn't take any classes or anything, but I was surrounding myself with other artists that we would get in a room together, and we'd, you know, kind of give each other ideas or whatever. But it was a fun time in my life. I don't paint very often anymore. I probably should, but I just don't have the time that it takes for me. It doesn't come natural for me. It's like a Kelly 2.0 kind of thing. I have to be in the right frame of mind and mood to do it. But the fact that it got into Barry Gibb's house, I've been friends with Barry for many years, like 17 years now. We added up, and we sing together on occasion. And he's really passionate about his dogs, his wife and him. So I've painted several of theirs. I met Olivia Newton-John through Barry, and I gave her the gift of a painting of her dogs. And it goes on and on and on. It's like one thing is connected to the next. With the Oprah thing, I did a pilot with Olivia and Barry, as a matter of fact, that was presented to her for her own network. And one of the things that the producer wanted me to do was to paint her dog Sadie for her. Well, she didn't take the show, but she kept the painting. So At least I have bragging rights.
Well, you touched upon this. Now, I want to discuss your memoir. I'm not going anywhere. It's a fascinating read. I've been reading it this week. You and Olivia Newton-John, you had Olivia Newton-John write the foreword. So among the things that you discuss is your battle with cancer. First to discuss your friendship with Olivia, and also what prompted you to write the memoir.
I love your questions. These are really thoughtful. Thank you. Olivia and I became friends through Barry. I met her when I was 6 years old, actually, but she has no recollection of that. Obviously, I was just a little kid. But fast forward, I met her in 2007 at a benefit that Barry was singing at. And he didn't tell me that she was going to be sitting at my table. So imagine my surprise when she sat down next to me. We struck up an instant friendship. We had a lot in common, not only music, not only our friendship with Barry, but we were both mothers, we were both songwriters, we were both singers, both women, both love makeup and hair and clothes and stuff. So we really hit it off and became, friends up until the day she passed. And she just always encouraged other people, including myself, to live your best life, live bold and live happily and gratefully. And a lot of the things that I learned from her happen to be in the way that I think in my book. So the pandemic comes around and we all have time on our hands, right? One of the things that I decided I was going to do is clean out our garage. TG was not happy with this at all, but we had so many things that we had brought from our previous lives into our relationship that were just piled in boxes, and we didn't even know what was out there in the garage. Well, one of the things I found was a bunch of notes that I had taken when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. The doctor told me to make videos for my children just in case I didn't make it. And I thought, God, that's morbid, So I didn't do that. But I did take a lot of notes just in case they wanted to know what happened to me. In case I didn't make it, they would at least have that to look back on. I forgot about them. I literally didn't even think anything more about it. Once I wrote them down, I just kind of put it in a folder and went on. I found those notes and I was talking to my friend about that afternoon. And she goes, I had a dream about you writing a book. And it had something to do with the notes that you found in your garage. This book will help a lot of people. And I'm like, I don't know how to write a book. Like, what are you talking about? So it just sparked a nerve with me. And I thought, you know what, if this breast cancer diagnosis can help somebody, I've always been ashamed of talking about it. I always just kind of suppressed it and didn't want people to think that of me, but it just switched with me. Olivia changed so many people's lives with being open about it. I thought this is my chance to make it worth my time, having gone through such a horrific situation. If I could only help but just one person. And so therefore, the book came through and it was strangely very easy to write. I was just headstrong, very dedicated to getting it done and wrote it in record time. And was really fortunate that Governor Huckabee let me debut it on his national TV show. So that was really helpful. And we got a lot of great coverage out of that, especially with Livia's contribution to the book. So it was really sweet.
Well, when you were writing it, were there things that came to mind again that you had forgotten about it, even outside of your notes?
Oh yeah. And it's a lot of good stuff, a lot of things that I had felt like I had just suppressed and didn't want to unpack, but I knew I needed to. And I felt like I wanted to be really open and raw and truthful, because I don't like sugarcoating anything. I'd rather just be really honest. If somebody doesn't want to read that, they can flip the page, but that's been my favorite part about the book is that a lot of people said, thank you for being, clear with us about what you went through, because it takes the fear out of it if you know what you're getting ready to go into. A lot of people give my book as gifts to people that are going through it. I'm 18, so it had a really strange run, and I thought it was a perfect title for my book because I am not going anywhere. I'm still here.
Well, you've heard from a lot of other people how your battle helped to inspire them.
I sure have. And I don't feel qualified to be that to anybody, because I'm just doing the best I can. I can't recommend, and like I say in my book, I'm no doctor. I can't recommend that my decisions that I made for myself were something that I would offer somebody else. I can just only live by example, and it was the right choices for me. And I love that people are inspired by that, but I don't feel like much of an inspiration. I'm really humbled when people say that to me.
Let's go back to Olivia for a second. You were friendly with her, and she recently sadly passed as well. But you got to sing a duet with her beforehand. So how did that all come about?
That was huge. Oh my goodness, she was amazing. Hang on.
Sure.
So she sang very high, very light and airy, and a higher pitch than me. And she always liked that I sing really low. For a female, I sing in like the key of Kenny Rogers. I mean, it's really down in the basement. So she always liked that. So anytime I would do an album of like cover tunes per se, I love to record cover tunes. She would say, please send me the latest one. I want to hear it. She would play my music for all of her dinner parties and just kind of keep them all going through her house, which I thought was shocking. I mean, I was like, this is very nice. Thank you. I thought she was just being nice. But one day she called me and she goes, Kelly, are you recording any new albums? And I'm like, as a matter of fact, I actually am. I'm just starting one. What are you cutting? What songs are you doing? And I'm like, I don't, here's one I've already done. But I said, why are you asking? She goes, I just love them. And I said, okay, how much do you love them? Why don't you join me in the studio and do a duet with me? And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. But we had that kind of relationship, And she was, okay, what will we sing? And I'm like, oh my goodness, she's serious. So the only thing I could think of at that moment was that I'd seen her and Barry Gibb sing How Can You Mend a Broken Heart at a gala we went to in Australia with them. And by the way, traveling in Australia with the Gibbs and Olivia Newton-John is like traveling with royalty. It was,
Sure.
it was wild. Anyway, we went to the Palms Resort site. The song How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, now that she has passed, is very poignant and heart-wrenching when you see the video of us in the studio together. And I thought it ended up on an album that I did called Throwback. And I didn't really promote it that much. It was just an honor for me really to have her on there. So imagine my surprise, several years later, here we go again. I get a phone call from her producer saying that she's adding me to her duets album with Mariah Carey and John Cena and Barry Gibb and Paul Anka. And I'm like, what? You gotta be kidding me. But it's every duet she's ever done in her life. And they collected it on volume 1 and volume 2. And I am on volume 1. So I'm very thrilled to be on that album. And she passed right before they released that. So
God, that's absolutely incredible. But speaking of duets, you mentioned your husband is T.G. Sheppard, and you two have recorded together, but you also have your own completely separate careers. Is it tough to make time for each other as well as juggle your own musical careers, which often involves, touring much of the year?
You would think it would be, but we have different schedules, yes, but we do so much together. And the things that he does, I can generally have the time off to go with him and vice versa, So we just make that time, we etch it out. Like if I'm off the road and he has a show coming up, I'll just go with him. And maybe I'll get on stage with him, maybe I don't. But we are so thankful that we have that much in common. A lot of people would be competitive, I would think, because it's, you could have an ego bruise or a bump every once in a while, but he's already been there, done that. He's already got the shirt and the hat and the mugs, and he's already seen every mountain there is to see. And I think with me being several notches underneath his success ladder, it's really fun for him to encourage me and see the things that I get myself into, because they're a little bit different than what he did. And it's great to learn from him. I mean, we just do really, really well together. And as far as the timing goes, we just we make the time. We realize that our love is very, very valuable and very different than most. So we know we're on borrowed time, so we spend as much time as we can possibly together and just enjoy the ride. It's been fun.
Now, I'll talk about performing. So you've also shared the stage, and you mentioned it with some absolute legends. I mean, people like Loretta Lynn, Barry Gibb, George Strait. So are you able to always separate the professional side of what you do from the fan side and just look and think like, wow, I can't believe who I'm performing with right now?
No, I'm a huge fan. Are you kidding? It freaks me out. I mean, the first time I met Barry Gibb, we had a really terrible tornado here, okay? And I just felt this passion to help out. So I decided that so many people had lost their houses, and we've got so many musical artists here in Hendersonville. Why don't I try to spearhead and these people that I did know that lived here, maybe we could get them all together and do a benefit concert for them, for the town. And I heard that Barry Gibb had bought Johnny Cash's house, but I didn't know Barry. Okay. I knew somebody that knew his secretary, but I didn't know him. Mm-hmm. But I thought, what's it going to hurt? I'm just going to write a letter to that girl and just see if maybe he's in town singing the house for the very first time. Who knows? So I did. I wrote a note, never thought I'd hear from him again or ever. I was driving through the McDonald's drive-thru, getting myself an ice cream cone, and I got a phone call from his manager, a British accented manager named Dick Ashby, and he said not only was Barry going to be in town that very first day seeing his house, but that's the exact weekend he's going to be here, and he wants to come to the benefit, but he wants to sing with you, Kelly. And I go, let me get my ice cream cone out of my lap here. You know, it was so surreal. So believe it or not, they're all related in some way. Like Barry's a huge fan of Loretta Lynn. Loretta's a huge fan of, you know, so they're everybody's fans of everybody's connected and they all get. So fast forward again, I sang with Barry Gibb for Kenny Rogers' induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Barry is bigger than life. Okay. Like he is like a pop god. All right. He has no clue of how big he is. He has no clue. He is freaked out by country music artists. Like he is a nervous wreck. So the whole time we were doing the show at the Country Music Hall of Fame, I'm with my friends. There's Barbara Mandrell, there's Bobby Bare, there's Garth Brooks. They're my friends, like legit friends. He was so nervous. He stayed in the dressing room the whole time with the lights out. He couldn't face them because he was so uncomfortable and nervous around it. So my point is saying that is not calling him out, but it's just everybody's a fan of somebody. And when you get past the feeling of not being a fan of somebody, what's the fun? You know, I mean, that's 90% of the reason I enjoy the project of being in the music industry, because I get to meet my heroes.
Well, let's talk about that performance, the Country Music Hall of Fame that you did with him. You sang Islands in the Stream to Kenny Rogers. So you had the person who wrote the song, the person who performed it and made it famous. So how daunting is that for you?
It was, again, another pinch me moment. I mean, that was a real highlight for me. I am not going to lie. And then the next night we performed on the Opry together. So that was really surreal as well. But, you know, just knowing Barry, he's just such a humble, very kind, sweet guy. And he honestly needed me to be his calming person. He got the wrong girl, I promise, because I was like, this is crazy. But it was a highlight for me. And it was shocking to see Kenny singing along. And I don't even, there's no words, really. It was, I would give anything to relive that night again, because it was off the chain.
Oh gosh. Well, you performed with so many famous people. That was a few we mentioned. I'm sure many we haven't. Are there any we haven't mentioned that stand out to you more than others, and for what reason?
Oh my goodness. Well, my favorite person to sing with is TG. I just enjoy him so much. We're actually recording a new duet album. It'll be out in February, so I'm super excited about that. And we've got a really big thing coming up together that we're going to be announcing in October. I can't tell you all of the details yet, but he's my favorite partner. I just enjoy him so much.
Well, you mentioned you've sort of become a regular on Huckabee, and so how did that happen? How did that come about?
I have no idea. I call him Govey. we just get along. We get along really, really well. He and his wife Janet are sweet friends. I didn't realize I was looking like a regular, but I guess compared to other artists, maybe I'm on there more than normal. I don't know.
I would say you are, yeah.
You think so? I don't know. I would love to give you the answer, but I'm just grateful.
Well, this might just be another one of those situations, but you were also the spokesperson for Cindy Crawford's skincare line, Meaningful Beauty. And now, how did that come about? And when you're a spokesperson for a company, what are some of the obligations you have for that?
That was a strange twist of fate. I have never written to a company and said, wow, your product is amazing. I wanted nothing from them. I just wanted to just go, oh, wow, because it is. And I had been using it for quite some time, and I wrote the company a letter. They wrote me right back, and they said, thank you for your, using our products. I sent them my website. I, just wanted them to see who I was, and I wasn't trying to get anything out of it. I just was explaining who I was and that I am in the music industry, and I've loved their products. So they started sending me samples and extra products and stuff, just like an influencer would these days, but this was a while back. And, you go back and you think, let me try to think how they wrote me, and they said, we would like to see if you would be interested in being in one of our Cindy Crawford Meaningful Beauty commercials. And I'm like, absolutely. I really, yes, as a spokesperson, you like the product, you're a genuine person that would enjoy the project. And I said, okay, great. So they didn't come for quite some time. Well, in the meantime, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Bald and green is not a good sales tool for a makeup company. Okay, so I wrote to them and I said, you know what, timing is really bad. I've been diagnosed with cancer. I've lost all my hair. I'm a really cool shade of green right now. I just don't think it would be a good fit, but thank you. If you ever decide to do this again, if I'm still alive in a couple of years, let's talk. And they wrote me back and they said, not only do we think that you're the perfect person for this, but the fact that you're continuing to use our products through your journey, we would think it'd be more powerful to use you in our campaign. And I'm like, okay. So they flew here. They came to Nashville and they filmed me and my daughters. They were 9 and 13 at the time. And my hair was just starting to grow back in. And it was like a 2-day shoot. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. It never came out. The commercial kept stalling. Finally, 5 years later, I get this DVD disc mailed to me on my front porch. And I thought, what is this? It was the commercial. And this 2-day film that they did on me ended up being 5 seconds of, and this is the most horrible thing. I said, my friends thought I used Botox, but I hadn't. Oh. That's all they used of the whole thing. So,
oh no.
But it was super funny because I was given products for the whole 5 years and I didn't have any obligations. And I got so much pub out of that one little statement. I had people from all over the country writing me, how cool. So I had never met Cindy Crawford that whole time. I never met her, never got to visit with her, but I always loved her, Imagine my surprise. Not this 4th of July, but last 4th of July. And please forgive me, I'm going to sound like a name dropper, and I certainly don't mean to. But when you're in the music industry, you hang with other music people. Very much like you being an actor, other actors. Or if you were a doctor, you would hang with other doctors. So bear with me. I'm sitting at Kid Rock's house at his dinner table. And there across from me is Cindy Crawford and her husband, Randy. And I'm like, oh, this is really weird, So I was able to tell her my full circle moment, and she was sweet, but I'm sure there's been a lot of people that have told her those same kind of stories. She wasn't too impressed, but boy, it was impressive to me to get to meet her, though. It was really cool.
Well, you have a new album out, Dragonfly. Can you talk a little about that and the impetus behind it?
Dragonfly, the title comes from a really weird phenomenon that happens to me when I'm in my swimming pool. I hold up my fingers, and inevitably a dragonfly will come and land on me. It's so weird. Like, who does that? But it happens every year, all the time. And so people started nicknaming me Dragonfly. And people send me coffee mugs and pillows, and I have so many dragonfly things around the house. It's gotten to a level of importance. So I was looking for titles for this new inspirational album that I'm putting together, and I don't know, the title Dragonfly just kind of came to be because they're kind of spiritual creatures, and they're mystifying, and I don't know, I just thought it was a really cool title for the project, which led me to writing a song called Dragonfly. So nobody's heard that yet. I'm anxious for people to be able to see the video on that coming up soon.
Well, we've already talked about all the Hall of Fames you've been inducted into. So how gratifying is that for you as a performer to get that recognition, and so many times?
If I bought my own press, I would probably be egotistical, but it's just, I don't feel like I belong there. I'm very shocked and grateful. I don't know. I'm just doing my thing, I'm just kind of keeping my head down and doing my thing. And to be recognized it makes you feel like you're not wasting your time, for sure. When people acknowledge that what you're doing matters, and it turns it from being into a nice hobby into this is a career. Okay. So it's just really, really great.
Well, you mentioned touring. So where will you be appearing next?
Well, I'd love to tell you, but it's a big surprise.
Oh, okay.
I've got something up my sleeve that's coming up. A couple of things in Nashville is what I'll just say. A couple of things in Nashville.
Can't wait to find out.
Well, you did mention you're working on a project with TG. What else will you be working on?
Well, we're doing some shows coming up soon. You can just look on the website. There's some private events that we're doing, I think, starting end of November. So you can be watching for that. I'll start to tour more next year than I am this year. It's really funny. My brain has to be very compartmentalized. This year has been spent on writing and recording and a couple of shows here and there. Next year is when I tour, and that's when I get to go out and show my music to the audiences out. So that's a really fun time for me to be able to show what I've been working so hard on.
Well, how can fans follow you on social media?
Oh, please do. KellyLang.net. There's everything on there that you can find. My audiobook it's an audiobook now, but it's on Audible and Amazon, and also on KellyLang.net. But you can also get the hard copy or paperback on there, as well as Amazon. I'm on Kelly Lang Music on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. What is it? X? Is that what we're calling it now? And I'm even dabbling.
I haven't quite made that commitment yet. It's like, see it and I'm torn. I'm like,
I know.
Is it X? Is it X Twitter? You know what I mean?
I know. It's kind of like, remember when Prince went with the symbol? It's kind of like,
yeah,
I don't know what to call it. So that's weird. But I'm just starting to dabble in TikTok. I can't figure out that world just yet. It's a different animal, don't y'all think?
Oh yeah, man, very much so. I haven't made that.
I wouldn't even. I can't even imagine getting into it. I just got into Twitter in the last year and a half, and yeah, it's yep. So no, not me.
TikTok to me, my daughter is huge on TikTok. Like, she's got ridiculous amount of fans on there, but I don't know. It's a whole learning curve to me. I'm trying to learn it, and I know it's of importance, but I don't know. I don't have the time to sit there and learn all these video techniques and all. So it's a new thing for me.
Well, Kelly, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a real treat, such a pleasure to get to talk to you. And anytime you want to come back to discuss your other projects, you're more than welcome as well.
Well, when I can tell you more about what we've got going on, well, I'll be glad to come back.
First, we'll thank you again. And this has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Ike Eisenman. And again, a very special thanks to Kelly Lang. And please subscribe.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.